Today's sponsor is Advancement Courses. Stay tuned at the end of the show for a special coupon for 20% off any of their grad level professional development courses. Rethinking Professional Development so it actually improves teaching. Episode 269.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Today, we're talking to Jarod Bormann, technology integrator in Iowa and author of Professionally Driven. Jarod, you have been rethinking professional development. How are you rethinking it, and why do we need to rethink professional development for teachers?
The happenings of the surroundings of it sort of stem from a particular kind of planning session that I had with a technology planning team. And there was a school initiative that was going one-to-one with 6th through 12th grade with MacBook Airs. So they were kind of setting up what I would call a la carte PD, where they were kind of thinking, okay, we need some Google Suite training, we need some Apple Suite training and so forth. And really it kind of came down to the superintendent who was looking at everything, seeing the plan, and we were feeling really good about it. And then he essentially said, so what do we do for the educators that don't need any of that? What about them? And that really opened up the conversation to really sort of think not just tech PD, but professional development as a whole. How could we rethink that? And so we really developed this kind of model that ended up being embedded on the idea of three big pieces that I think are really important to allow an educator to begin to truly redefine the letters PD from a thing that we do to a thing that represents us, professionally driven. It's got to be embedded on the idea of developing a growth mindset, a process, an active process of developing a growth mindset. The process has to start with intrinsic motivation, and that intrinsic motivation needs to be sustained all the way through the learning journey. And then the third big piece is sustainable autonomy. And the sustainable part, the reason why I'm so adamant about including that is because there are school districts that do utilize that autonomy piece, where I've talked to some administrators that say, hey, we did an ed camp last month and the teachers loved it. They love that autonomy. And I said, excellent. So are you doing it again this month? And they said, no, we don't plan on doing it again the rest of the school year. So the autonomy cannot be a one and done. It's got to be something that is consistently ongoing. And so based on those three big ideas, we really shaped a model of professional development that really supports what I feel is proper technology integration. And that is the fact that if I was to start with intrinsic motivation and I'm developing my own journey, where do I start at point A on that journey? So what I do is I try to prompt with some coaching and questioning and try to get to the idea of where do I see students consistently operating in the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy? Then the question needs to be, how do I move them into the upper levels more frequently over the longer course of time, which I would feel is a truer definition of the word engagement than how you would typically hear it used in sort of the educational stratosphere today, where it's kids active and doing things. I want to get my kids cognitively engaged as frequently as possible. The interesting idea is that when moving students from lower level thinking to upper level thinking more frequently over the course of time, that is probably going to require some kind of use of technology, because I don't know how to do that with a textbook. I don't know how to do that with a packet or worksheet. So technology is probably going to be the accelerator in that, but not necessarily the driver. The pedagogy is the driver.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. Now, the second one you listed, which is intrinsic motivation. Now, this is tough, and we'll put on our psychology hats. Of course, extrinsic motivation is when someone motivates you from the outside. You do this, and I will give you that. I'll give you a raise, or we call it carrot or stick. I'm going to either give you a positive or negative. And then intrinsic is when we are motivated within ourselves. And intrinsic motivation is pretty much the holy grail of motivation, because you are unstoppable when you're highly motivated to do something. But Jarod, this intrinsic motivation, it's hard. How do you propose that we help teachers be intrinsically motivated? Because, some teachers are tired, or they're wondering, do I still want to do this? Or they have a lot of things going on in their lives. And intrinsic motivation is not easy to just turn on like a light bulb.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But what I have seen in most cases with traditional forms of professional development is that usually someone else other than me is laying out the path of learning. And we usually disguise that learning in some kind of form of training. So I need you to complete this, and then, as you mentioned, you will receive whatever it may be at the end, or we need you to do this because we see this as a major deficit in our school's data, and we have to understand it better and do it better. But what I'm trying to advocate for, and in no way, shape, or form am I saying personalized PD time for the professionally driven model should be 100% of any kind of professional development time, the contractual time. But what ends up happening is you have school districts that essentially use up all the PD time for what it should be is just labeled as training. And then they expect teachers to do the learning or the organic, intrinsically motivating learning on their own. And then if they don't, then they're quickly labeled as a lazy or lousy teacher. And that's just completely unfair. We're not creating the proper environment for our adult learners that we even want for our student learners. So what I try to advocate for is out of your contractual PD time, what portion of that per month can we offer for educators to go either individually or in small groups if we have similar journeys on their professionally driven journey? They're using that personalized PD time. So I have some schools that offer as little as 2 hours a month, which I think is pretty much the minimum. But there are some schools that offer half of their monthly PD time is dedicated towards personalized PD time, and that intrinsic motivation sets forth. But I think the thing that administrators are really leery of even wanting to put something like this in place is that it feels like, or it may sound like, oh, teachers are just kind of choosing something sort of willy-nilly out of the air, some trend that they find on Twitter or something like that. And that's not necessarily the case. There's more to it than that as far as how do we exactly help give the right questions and the right structures to help an educator find their point A in order to then scale to the summit of point B, which is a positive effect on learner outcomes. And everybody has the same point B. It's just that's the positive effect on learner outcomes. That could be anybody's point E, no matter what grade level or content area you teach.
Well, and just asking teachers, I mean, when you as a workshop leader go into a school and teachers have asked for what you're teaching them, you start off so far ahead than if this is something that the folks on high say the teachers need to know, and the folks on high don't even go. And, there's just a difference. So I see, this asking teachers, what is it that you need to do your job better, and being part of the selection of PD. Okay, so Jarod, as we're finishing up, could you give us a brief 30-second encouragement for how we need to advocate for the things that we know we need to learn to be better teachers?
I'm going to steal this from an administrator that I talked to yesterday and had the opportunity to talk to from a middle school who is doing amazing things when it comes to changing their instructional practices and everything. I asked him the very same question. I said, what data was bad that tells you should be implementing this new whatever it may be in your school district? And he said, nobody should ever make a culture change based on bad data. They should make a culture change based on the fact that they know it's the right thing to do. And I would probably say that would be my motivator for anybody who is sort of seeing their current learning environment for their adults, all adults in their school district, and sort of wonder what would be the right thing to do for them and start making that culture change for them.
Wow. So Jarod Bormann, the name of the book is Professionally Driven, and he's also got, of course, a website, Professionally Driven, and a podcast, lots of things with that from Iowa. And I think that these are some great questions and some thought-provoking ones about what really makes excellent professional development. Truthfully, many of us have been struggling for a model that really captures, where we need to be heading and how we need to be personalizing it for teachers and also making it engaging. And I think that this is a fascinating three-part model of, first of all, adopting a growth mindset. Second of all, having our intrinsic motivation, and then sustainable autonomy as we proceed with our professional development. So take a look and remember, remarkable teachers, you're already getting some professional development because you're listening to podcasts, but we all have to intentionally decide that we are going to learn, and I always have my big 3. What are the next 3 things I'm going to learn? I always have that list. Need some great professional development? Today's sponsor, Advancement Courses, has more than 200 graduate-level online professional development courses for K-12 teachers. You can take these courses for continuing education, salary advancement, or recertification. And these courses have us teachers developing tangible resources to use in our classrooms immediately. Go now to advancementcourses.com/coolcat and use the code COOL20 at checkout to get 20% off any course. With this coupon, a 3 grad credit course is only $359. So go to advancementcourses.com/coolcat to learn more and use the coupon code COOL20. Never stop learning.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.